He walks into a room, and the energy shifts, not because he's powerful, but because he's chaotic. You know the type. One moment, he's laughing louder than the rest. The next, he's cursing the world like it owes him something. His mood changes like the wind, and you're left wondering, how did I get pulled into this storm? You see, Stoicism teaches us that a person without command over their emotions is no different than a leaf in the wind, tossed, torn, and trampled by forces they can't control. Marcus Aurelius once said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." But this person, they've surrendered that power, given it away. Every insult, every delay, every small inconvenience becomes an earthquake in their soul. And if you're not careful, it becomes one in yours too. Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling drained? Not because of what was said, but because of how much emotional weight you were forced to carry. That's the price of keeping the emotionally enslaved close. Their feelings bleed into yours. Their storms become your climate. And slowly, quietly, without even realizing, you lose your inner stillness, your ability to respond instead of react. You start absorbing what isn't yours to carry. But here's the terrifying truth. Emotional slavery is contagious. And if you don't draw a line, if you don't build a wall, they will shape you into a mirror of their own instability. So ask yourself, would you let someone else control your heartbeat? Then why let them control your peace? Avoid those who haven't tamed their emotional wildfires, because in the end they will burn everything you've worked so hard to build, including your sense of who you are. If this truth hits something deep in you, don't just watch in silence. Tap subscribe, join us, because this path, it's not for the faint-hearted, but for those ready to become unshakable. Have you ever sat across someone whose mood felt like a ticking bomb? You speak carefully, you breathe slowly, not because you're weak, but because you know. One wrong word, one misplaced silence, and their entire being might explode. One minute they're warm and cheerful, the next they're drenched in rage, drowning in drama, or spiraling into a pit of self-pity. And you sit there, absorbing their chaos, trying to stay grounded while their storm tries to pull you under. That is not connection. That is emotional terrorism. And whether we admit it or not, many of us are tied to people who haven't learned to govern their own reactions. Stoicism calls them what they are, slaves of emotion. These are not bad people, but they are dangerous. Because when a person hasn't mastered their inner world, they unconsciously demand that you carry it for them. They feed off reaction, live off drama, and mistake emotional outbursts for passion. Seneca once said, "A great mind becomes a great fortune." But the emotionally enslaved, they rob your fortune, not your money, but your time, your clarity, your ability to remain still in a world built to shake you. They want you to dance in their storms, to validate their mood swings, to absorb their instability, until eventually you forget what stillness ever felt like. And the saddest part, it always begins subtly. A small complaint here, an overreaction there. But before long, your peace becomes a battlefield. And the war, it's not yours. Now think carefully. How many times have you shrunk yourself to avoid setting someone else off? How many times have you held your truth back, softened your tone, sacrificed your peace, all so someone else wouldn't explode? You may think you're being kind, but what you're really doing is training yourself to tolerate volatility. And when you tolerate emotional chaos long enough, you start internalizing it. You start reacting like them, feeling like them, breaking like them. And suddenly, the line between who you are and what they feel becomes blurred, dangerously blurred. That's how you lose yourself, not in a loud moment, but in a slow erosion. Stoicism is not about being cold. It's about being anchored. It's about walking through storms, both within and without, and still hearing your own voice above the noise. You cannot do that while tethered to someone who treats every emotion like a god and every thought like a command. These people do not need your sympathy. They need your absence, because if you stay, you will become like them, reactive, fragile, uncentered. And if you're serious about building an inner empire, you must learn to protect your energy like a sacred temple. Guard your gates, and don't hand over the keys to someone who hasn't even learned to hold their own. If this truth stirred something inside you, something you felt but never put into words, then this journey is yours. Join the inner circle, because what's coming next will tear the old you apart, and what remains will be unbreakable. They don't scream, they don't rage, they don't even look like a threat, but their weapon is far more dangerous. Doubt. You know the one. They show up when your fire is just beginning to grow, when you start to build something bold, something pure, something you. And with the softest voice, almost caring, almost innocent, they plant the seed. Are you sure? What if you fail? What if people laugh? It sounds like concern, but it's not. It's corrosion, because what they're really asking is, what if you stayed small, like me? These people don't need to drag you down. They just need to nudge you off the edge of your own confidence. And the worst part, it works. Because doubt, when spoken by someone close, feels like wisdom, when in reality it's fear dressed as advice. Stoicism tells us that the greatest prison is not made of bars, it's made of hesitation. Epictetus once said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." But the whisperer of doubt wants you to react with retreat, to second-guess your steps, to pause when you should move, to think yourself out of your own potential. And if you're not grounded, their whisper becomes your inner voice. It gets inside your bloodstream. You begin to question your own instincts. You slow down. You look for approval. You abandon your fire for their comfort, not because you're weak, but because you're human, and humans seek harmony. But Stoicism teaches us not all harmony is worth the cost of your soul. Not all comfort is safe. Sometimes the most dangerous person in your life is the one who seems to be protecting you. So I ask you, who do you go to when you're about to make a bold move? Who do you trust with your vision, your ideas, your deepest desires? Are they building you, or are they planting little traps of uncertainty inside your mind because your future depends on it? The whisperer of doubt may never raise their voice, but they will lower yours until one day you no longer recognize the sound of your own certainty. Avoid them, not with anger, not with war, but with quiet distance. Protect your mind like sacred ground. And if this chapter spoke to you, even just a little, then it's time to reclaim that voice inside you that always knew. And the ones who wait for approval never make history. They are everywhere, talking, posting, complaining, boasting, filling the air with noise so thick it drowns out everything real. This is the merchant of noise, the one who can't sit in silence because silence would force them to confront themselves. They live on distractions, on gossip, trivial pursuits, constant entertainment. They know the latest scandal, the newest trend, the loudest voice in the room. But ask them about their own soul, and suddenly they have nothing to say. The Stoics warned us, a scattered mind is a weak mind. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are disturbed by external events, it is not the events themselves that trouble you, but only your mind's judgment of them. And this you can erase." But the merchant of noise doesn't erase. They collect. They stockpile mental garbage. And worse, they try to sell it to you. Every minute you spend around them is a theft of your clarity, a theft of your focus, and most dangerously, a theft of your time. You begin to notice it when your own thoughts feel crowded, when your mornings start with scrolling instead of silence, when you confuse being informed with being awake. But deep down, your spirit knows. You were not made for noise. You were made for depth, for solitude, for presence. And you can't find that in someone who's always running from stillness. Ask yourself this. When was the last time you truly sat with your thoughts, undistracted, unfiltered, and unbothered? Not performing, not reacting, just being. Can you even remember? If not, there's a reason. The merchant of noise has made chaos feel normal, has made overstimulation feel like necessity. And the longer you dance in their world, the harder it is to hear the voice that matters most, your own. So let this be a warning. If you want to build a fortress of inner power, you must exile the noise. You must choose depth over distraction, because not all movement is progress, and not all connection is growth. They walk into the room with effortless ease, their smile calculated, their words smooth, polished, magnetic. They know exactly what to say, how to say it, and when to say nothing at all. Everyone leans in closer, everyone wants a piece of them. And yet, behind that perfectly crafted exterior hides something dangerous. The mask of charm isn't worn by honest souls, it's worn by those who have learned to mimic warmth without ever offering truth, to manipulate without ever getting their hands dirty. These people don't seek connection, they seek control. And they do it with compliments, with laughter, with attention, until you no longer see what's behind the mask. But Stoicism sees it, and Stoicism warns. Beware the person who always says the right thing, because they've probably never said a real thing. Charm without virtue is a trap. Seneca wrote, "Fortune rarely accompanies virtue, and virtue rarely pleases the crowd." Why? Because true virtue is honest, it's raw, sometimes uncomfortable. And charm avoids discomfort at all costs. The masked charmer would rather say what pleases than what's real. They don't help you grow. They help you stay addicted to their approval. They become your mirror, reflecting only what you want to see, never what you need to confront. And when your identity starts to rely on their validation, you become fragile, easily molded, easily broken. And that's when they have you, not by force but by influence. And the most dangerous chains are the ones you never see being wrapped around you. Now look back. Have you ever been pulled into someone's orbit only to slowly lose your voice trying to stay in their light? Have you ever trusted someone who always made you feel good, only to later realize they never really knew you and never cared to? That's the mask of charm in full effect. They don't want your truth. They want your attention. And once they have it, they'll drain you without ever appearing cruel. You'll walk away smiling, but empty. That's why the Stoics teach us to value substance over style, to choose the blunt truth over the sweet lie, because anything that flatters your ego while starving your soul must be burned, without hesitation. If this chapter exposed a mask in your life, rip it off. And if it revealed one on your own face, tear it down. Join the inner rebellion, because from here on out, only the real can follow. You'll recognize them not by what they do, but by what they refuse to own. Every failure is someone else's fault. Every delay, every mistake, every downfall, always someone else to blame. Their life is a gallery of finger-pointing. They are the victim in every story, the tragic hero in their own mind. And they've built a fortress of excuses so thick, they've become immune to growth. This is the master of blame, a person so afraid of their own reflection. They choose to shatter every mirror around them rather than look inward. And if you stay too long in their presence, you'll start doing the same. Stoicism has no room for blame. Epictetus was clear. do not seek to have events happen as you want them to, but instead want them to happen as they do, and your life will go well. The master of blame wants the world to bend to their will, and when it doesn't, they punish the world. But here's the truth. Blame is the language of the powerless. It is a shield for the ego and a grave for accountability. And when you surround yourself with people like this, they teach you to avoid responsibility, to run from it. You start to believe your circumstances are enemies, not lessons, that the world is against you, not shaping you. And that dangerous belief is how strong minds become weak. Let me ask you, when something goes wrong in your life, where does your mind go first? Do you reach outward or inward? Do you look for who caused it or how you respond to it? Because the master of blame thrives in a culture of deflection, and if you don't actively resist it, you'll start to measure your progress by how safe you feel from discomfort rather than how honest you are with yourself. Stoicism teaches us that power begins where blame ends, that the moment you say, "This is mine to carry," the transformation begins. Not because you deserve the pain, but because you refuse to give anyone else the power to shape you. If you're ready to stop running and start owning, this is your calling. Because from here on out, we stop blaming the storm and start becoming the mountain. They rarely look dangerous. In fact, they often come with smiles, casual invitations, and phrases like "just for a second" or "real quick," but they are not harmless. Because what they steal from you can never be returned. These are the thieves of time, people who waste hours with meaningless chatter, empty distractions, shallow pursuits, and pointless drama. They drift through life like it's infinite, pulling you along for the ride. But you know better. Deep down, you feel it. Time is bleeding out. Every second spent chasing nothing, listening to nothing, being nothing, is a second you'll never get back. And the more you entertain these people, the more your life starts to resemble theirs, scattered, noisy, empty. Seneca, in one of the most haunting truths ever written, said, "People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. Time is the only currency you cannot earn back, and yet the thief of time walks beside you, making you feel guilty for saying no. They sell you the illusion of bonding, of taking it easy, of just relaxing. But what they're really selling is decay. Because while they pass the hours aimlessly, you have work to do. You have battles to fight within yourself, discipline to build, dreams to forge in the fire. The thief of time doesn't care about that because they've already quit on their own greatness, and nothing haunts the quitters more than watching someone else rise. Let me ask you, who in your life makes you better simply by being around them? Who respects your time like it's sacred? And who wastes it like it's disposable? The answers to those questions will reveal everything. Because your minutes are your life, and the people who treat your time with disrespect are quietly telling you that you don't matter. Stoicism calls us to brutal clarity. If someone wouldn't steal your money, why would you let them steal your days? There is nothing more terrifying than reaching the end of a day or a life and realizing you handed it away in tiny pieces to people who never earned it. If this chapter cut deep, good. That means you're awake, the ones who treat each moment like a battlefield, because the next chapter is the one most people never see coming.